Good morning, everyone. I am on the road, so different studio today. Justin Trudeau has finally commented on the desecration of the John A. Macdonald statue in Montreal, and CTV News is tweeting, Trudeau deeply disappointed after demonstrators toppled John A. Macdonald's statue. And here's the CTV article, Trudeau deeply disappointed, blah, blah, blah. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's deeply disappointed by the vandalism that he said took place when protesters toppled a statue of former Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald in Montreal over the weekend. The statue of the former Prime Minister was toppled and decapitated during a demonstration Saturday calling for the defunding of police. It was by black bloc militants. These are terrorists. These are organized people that sent there to specifically have a result, like decapitating a statue of a founder. Like this isn't people organizing ad hoc or grassroots and saying, yes, defund the police, let's topple the statue of Canada's founder. Really, find me 10 Canadians who would agree with that and then be able to find a bunch more people to organize themselves and get themselves up there to start pushing the statue over. This is not a defund the police movement. This is ridiculous to blame that. Back to this quote. We are a country of laws, says the Prime Minister, and we are a country that needs to respect those laws even as we seek to improve and change them, Trudeau said in Montreal on Monday. Those kinds of acts of vandalism are not advancing the path towards greater justice and equality in the country. The protest is one of the latest demonstrations against police brutality and systemic racism after several high-profile police-involved deaths of people of color sparked ongoing protests in Canada and around the world. No, there wasn't actually a death of a person in police custody or anything like that. Some people blamed police in Toronto, and Jagmeet Singh spread conspiracy theories and hate-mongering about police, which I think is very, very low-brow for a party leader, especially the NDP party leader. Imagine if Stephen Harper did that. Imagine how vilified he'd be, right? Unbelievable. Anyway, back to this. The protest is one of the latest demonstrations against police brutality and systemic racism after several high-profile, I said that already. While Trudeau said his government has a lot of work to do, he also said that he's more interested in using the real frustrations that people have as motivation to continue to make the big changes necessary. Choices like this to rely on vandalism to advance causes is not going to help anyone move forward the right way, said Trudeau. The Prime Minister did acknowledge, however, that there are some elements in the history of Macdonald's words and actions that must be looked at with a more critical eye. It's interesting how much the newspaper fills in here. Trudeau actually said some elements and more critical eye. So the newspaper is spinning a narrative here, and they're pushing to cast the black bloc face-covered militants as defund the police protesters. Bull. This is absolute fantasy spun by CTV News. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating to have the news make up whatever slant they want, and the slant supports what the Prime Minister's saying, right? He's saying these protests say that what we're doing is good. He says using the protests, these again, I'm sure paid black bloc militants who knocked over a statue while police stood by and did nothing. He's using that to further his political agenda, right? And that's inappropriate. I don't like that. That is not the way politics should be done, but it's the way politics is done. Speaking about Justin Trudeau and scandal, here's We back in the news again, thanks to Canada Land. And it says, We founded a new charity to give grants to students. It's mostly just bought up real estate. In the first year of operation, the Me to We Foundation of Canada, a registered charity, spent 130 times more on real estate than on expenses for carrying out charitable programs, according to its 2018 filing with the Canada Revenue Agency, CRA. In a statement, We Charity said the foundation's real estate acquisitions were in fact carried out as part of the foundation's charitable mission to build a campus for good. Yeah, so, they could buy lots of real estate. It's in the direction of their charitable mission. Or, a really good cover to purchase very expensive real estate with, creatively acquired funds, let's just say. Here's Vice Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, and she's asked a question, when will you make vaccines mandatory? And she hands that over to Patty Haydu, and Patty Haydu says, no, we won't make them mandatory, and then she cites the rules in place for having your children attend school, and kind of we all agree on that, so here it is.
I'm wondering when your government will be making a decision about the vaccine being mandatory, and what factors are going into that decision?
Well, let's be clear. No vaccines are mandatory, federally mandated to be used in Canada, and COVID-19 vaccine would be no different. In fact, there are some rules around, for example, school admissions provincially for children to be vaccinated for common childhood diseases. There are always exceptions to those rules, which are carefully managed by each jurisdiction. We believe that people have a choice in Canada about whether or not to be vaccinated, because in fact it speaks to some of the
At that point, she starts talking about misinformation and conspiracy theories online and blah 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 blah. This government's way overusing that because they're engaging in propagating this garbage, right? Like there is no good evidence for masks' efficacy working in stopping viruses, right? Respiratory viruses and masks, nothing at all says that worked before like studies started coming out in April and May 2020. Before that, any kind of search for mask efficacy in stopping viruses, you'd be laughed at by a doctor. No, that doesn't work. Masks are used to prevent bacterial droppings into surgery, like open surgery wounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the government propagating the idea that masks work to control a respiratory virus is itself misinformation. And so it's laughable that this government says, be wary of the misinformation. It's stupid. It's stupid. And it's disingenuous. And people can smell BS, right? And disingenuous is just another word for lying. So people can smell it. People don't like it. Sorry, I'm on just my laptop and it's not my usual setup here, so things are rocking around as I move my hands, so I apologize. Anyway, moving on. Here's Blacklock's reporter, and she says, half the restaurants are closed, and good luck finding a hardware store, but there are now 5 shops in an 8-block area south of Parliament Hill selling cannabis or drug paraphernalia. Great. Hashtag Canada Poly. Well, here's an interesting grouping of here's an interesting discussion. Laurie Goldstein, and he's a right-wing reporter, I suppose, in Canada, more right-wing than left-wing, and he's an editor emeritus, a columnist, Toronto Sun Media, commentator, News Talk 1010, National Post Radio, right? So he's, just in case you don't know who Laurie is, he says, well, this is awkward. Israel says George Soros is a threat. He, quote, continuously undermines Israel's democratically elected governments, said a foreign ministry spokesman and funds organization that defame the Jewish state and seek to deny it the right to defend itself. Israel backs Hungary, says financier Soros is a threat. And here's a Reuters article that talks about that. And I'm showing you this because, again, it's not just Canada that has a concern about George Soros and his influence around the world financially. Black Wednesday, Ukraine in 1991. Check out Amazing Polly, not Canada Polly's video. And this is well borne out in evidence, right? Like this is a 3-year-old article talking about how Israel backs Hungary. Israel is, and so calling any criticism of George Soros anti-Semitic seems really strange because like, of the definition of anti-Semitic, right? It seems really weird. And here's Michael Taube, and just to give you an idea of who he is the Tory media, Looney Politics, TWT, Bylines, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, CRB, NRO, TWS, WEX, Projo, I don't know what that is, NYP, FT, there's a whole bunch, AM 640, 1310, Sirius XM, speechwriter for Prime Minister Harper. Okay, so political guy, long in the tooth political guy. He's writing speeches for PM Harper. He's been around for a little while, right? Okay. So he says, what does this prove? Criticism of Soros' left-wing politics and activities isn't always rooted in anti-Semitism. Come on. Or carry on, he says. And then Evan weighs in. Oh, and he says, I'm surprised and saddened by this tweet, Michael. Are you seriously willfully ignoring the well-documented evidence on how George Soros is all too frequently and wrongfully used in virulent anti-Semitic conspiracy theories? It's too often dog whistle hate, not real criticism, and you know it. Okay, I guess. It seems Evan Solomon's playing the part of struggle session leader, right? Like you've got to fall in line there, Michael Taube. You've got to fall in line there, Laurie. It's definitely anti-Semitism, except that the B'nai Birth people also say Jewish billionaire George Soros funds group that supports boycott of Israel. So anti-Semitism is like hate against Jewish people, I believe, unless I've completely got it wrong, and saying that Jewish people are offended if you say George Soros is a powerful financier who has assets in multiple governments, let's say, and Chrystia Freeland was tapped to write his autobiography and read any article that written by Freeland in the 2010s about George Soros just to get how close they were. I mean, all of this is borne out in fact. Like, I don't think this is conspiracy theory. So it's interesting. Evan Solomon's taking Michael Taube and Lori Goldstein to task for daring to say it's not anti-Semitism. And Goldstein is defending himself, and there's lots of other evidence to support the fact that, well, Israel is no friend to George Soros. They back Hungary. So what? Evan Solomon being the struggle session guy, making sure that people fall in line, doesn't just end with other journalists either. He's trying to hold MPs to account. Is this apology enough? Is this a full enough apology, he says? Does this really own the responsibility of daring to question George Soros? Can you possibly apologize any less sincerely? Actually, he says, anyone who thinks trafficking in this hateful conspiracy theory is dangerous and hurtful when it gets this kind of mainstream validation, it is normalized. We'll discuss more on Monday on the radio. Yes, to discredit it, and more attacks of the source, more attacks of how crazy and conspiracy this is. Another good question, why is Freeland on the board of a Ukrainian NGO affiliated with the Clinton Foundation? It's a good question. It's a good question. I'm not going to get into this because, I just haven't had time. I'm on vacation, hence the traveling. So, but I want to get my show out because, I like talking to you guys. Okay, so moving on. Sir John A. Macdonald's statue is now hidden at Queen's Park. Oh, this was supposed to pair with the other statue at the beginning. So I apologize, but it's worth mentioning. Since July 16th, it's been covered. So Toronto's statue of Sir John A. Macdonald may not have been knocked to the ground yet, but he is hidden what amounts to be a casket. Is he buried forever? When or if Canada's first Prime Minister will ever once again appear in his long-standing spot of honor on the south lawn of Queen's Park is unknown. We do know the statue was vandalized with pink paint on July 18th, and that it has been covered up since. Inside this enclosure, you can see a bag over the Father of Canada's Confederation's head. It is certainly better than the statue in Montreal that its head came off with anti-police protesters Saturday pulled it down to the ground. Why is the Sun propagating that as well, the anti-police thing? I don't know, but I think this practice of erasing our history is not great, and the practice of running from holding people accountable for the reason of potential racism, not great. It's not going to be helpful. Ottawa Citizen is reporting, moving on. Canada signs deal with Novavax, to get 76 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. 76 million doses. Do you know that the population of Canada, just rough back of the napkin stuff, is 37 million? So why are we getting more than twice the population of Canada? That's twice, assuming, I guess, now that you need more than one dose of this COVID-19 vaccine, that nobody that I know is comfortable with taking. Not one person that I've spoken to is like, oh yeah, man, I can't wait. I can't wait till they come up with that vaccine. Even people who are afraid of the COVID-19 kind of are falling on the side of saying, yeah, I don't think I'm going to get the vaccine. I'll take my chances for right now. So 76 million, is that 37 plus 37? I'm not sure. That looks like roughly double. But I don't think this is going to work out. I think this is just going to be another expensive boondoggle. How much of that money that we spent on Cancino is moved over to this, right? Is there a lot of overlap there or what? That's concerning. Last story this morning, and I know I'm a little short. What is it, 13? Yeah, I'll be like my old length today. Ontario's 4 teachers' unions filing challenges with the Labour Board over back-to-school plans, saying the government failed to adequately respond to health and safety concerns. However, not expected to impact return to school for 190,000 members. Here's the Global News. And this is very slanted. This article is very slanted to the frightened teachers, the frightened unions, and some parents. It's like teachers, school boards, unions, and some parents are frightened and believe that schools classes should be smaller and blah, 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 all sorts of stuff. So 4 major teachers' unions filed labor board complaint over school reopening plan. An escalating conflict between Premier Doug Ford's government and 4 major teachers' unions is headed to the province's labor board as the union alleges Ontario's schools reopening plan violates its own workplace safety laws. The unions, which represent 190,000 teachers and education workers, said Monday morning that they all plan to file complaints after meetings with the Ontario government failed to address their concerns last week. Quote, no worker in the province of Ontario should be expected to sacrifice their health and safety, especially when there are such obvious measures the government could be taking to reduce the risk and prevent potential tragedies, OSSTF President Harvey Bischoff said in a statement. I'll tell you, Walmart workers have been working since the beginning of the pandemic. Daycare workers have been working all summer. Not one problem in the daycare that I've seen with either teachers or the ECEs, the daycare workers, the other staff members. Not one issue. And I don't even think, nobody's gotten sick that I've been aware of. I think other kids have had some other issues within the daycare, etc. Like regular daycare issues. People have sniffly noses or whatever. But nobody had COVID. And there were protocols in place where if they did have COVID, you could deal with it. And I sent my son. There were other parents I knew who were sending their kids. It wasn't an empty daycare by any stretch of the imagination. I don't understand how you can look at all that data. Like at the beginning of this, when we had no data and videos of people who were like collapsing in the streets, that's one thing. We have all sorts of data. These people are using this crisis to further their political means and their political agenda. And their political agenda is such that, well, it's a union, right? So the union needs to make themselves, more teachers, make themselves more important, right? And you grow your user base, you have more teachers, then there's more people who rely on you for a job and more people to take up pitchforks if they dare to cut anything, right? How dare you reduce the class size or make the class sizes bigger? Making class sizes bigger reduces the number of teachers needed, right? And the employer can then say, because the class sizes are X, we need Y fewer teachers, and therefore here's the pink slips. And it doesn't matter. The pink slips get absorbed into usually LTOs and supply until people retire, right? Like there's a whole formula that they run to make sure they have enough teachers. And even then, usually there's not enough teachers, right? So if you've got a special skill, then you're going to get jumped to the head of the line. Evidently, they're cutting the grass. Sorry. People showed up with lawnmowers. So sorry about that. I'm almost done. Back to this Ford. I scroll down a bunch because it's fear a bunch in this article. It's not worth it. Ford has repeatedly criticized the unions in recent weeks, and on Monday he again appealed to them to work with the province and return to school, but he also said the teachers' unions have fought with every Ontario government since the 1990s. Quote, I think it's ideology. I really do, said Ford. No matter what we do, it's just not going to be good enough. They just like to fight. What can I say? Labour Minister Monty McNaughton said he could not comment on the complaints, but the government inspectors have been in contact with school boards and staff on the restart. And I mean, they're doing a lot, right? Ford says a lot more than that, but it's not quoted here, and I don't have time to go find it right now, but there's a lot been done to make sure that they're above board with regards to medical advice, and they've got more than one medical doctor approving their plans. I think that as a parent, I'm not concerned at all about COVID-19. I'm concerned about the Marxist indoctrination in our schools and the Marxist indoctrination of the teachers already teaching currently. Like, they believe what they're saying. They believe all of this stuff, right? Like, they're unions. And yes, there are some teachers who've come out and said, we just want to get back to work. I just want to get into the classroom and teach the kids because that's what I'm here for. And there are a lot of teachers like that too. But there are a lot who've drunk the Kool-Aid and believe that their lives are in mortal danger, but that Walmart, the Walmart staff should definitely have to go to work. Like, it's just a very, it's a weird thing to believe. Here's the last tab for today. Brian Lilly says, Ontario teachers' unions are claiming schools are not safe. So let me remind you that they are not doctors. The province's plan has been signed off on by Dr. Dave Williams, Dr. Barbara Yaff, Dr. Kirk Hoyer, plus all the local public health doctors below. And it says, this is just a list of public health doctors that have signed off on the plans. I think kids need to go back to school. It's important. I think that, just for socialization, again, I think that school boards should be focusing on teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, critical thought, critical ability to think things through. I think the ideology that's permeated in the schools from the very top of the board all the way down is very, very concerning. There's a lot of people who are choosing to homeschool. So everybody's got to make up their own mind. I fight the board, I suppose. I push because it's not just my kids, right? Like, you have to live in the society with all of the people who are being taught a specific thing. And my goodness, the things that are being taught currently are very, very concerning. Concerning is an understatement, but I don't have another word right now, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. I'm going to try and keep up with my stuff here, but I am on vacation, so if the shows are a little short over the next couple of days, sorry about that. And I do my best. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful